Hi, my name is Michelle, and I'm going to be talking about Style and Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. So, the style of Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman was relatively unique at the time. It was a blend of realism and expressionism. He wasn't the first person to do this. So, actually, in 1947, Miller saw Tennessee Williams, A Streetcar Named Desire, and he saw this blend of non realistic and realistic elements, and it really appealed to Miller. He thought, this is how I want to represent, my main character, Willie, his dilemma, his state of mind. So, first off, let's talk about, well, what is realism and what is expressionism? So, realism was an artistic movement that began in France in the 19th century. And the idea, it was basically this idea of like holding up a mirror to reality, that art should be holding up a mirror to reality, and that we should try to accurately portray everyday characters, situations, dilemmas. Language should try to be as natural as possible. And we should use three-dimensional sets, we should use contemporary costumes, we should write plays that are critiques of social problems. And so this is what realists thought the purpose of writing and of art should be, is to hold up this mirror to reality and to show the audience, look, this is what our society is like, here are the problems with it, and, potentially here is how we solve them. Some of the great realists were Ibsen, Chekhov, George Bernard Shaw. Meanwhile, in the beginning of the 1900s, the movement of expressionism developed as a response or a reaction to realism. So expressionist dramatists, they said, okay, we think that the way that art should function is that it should present the inner psychological reality of a character, and that what's more important is not, showing the external characteristics of a character, what you can see with your eyes, but sort of the subjective experience, subjective vision of the world, rather than an objective representation of the world. So say that I am walking down the street and I'm smiling. Realism would say, depict Michelle walking down the street smiling. But what if inside of my head I'm actually really worried about, the upcoming election? It's through something like expressionism where we now have the tools to depict the psychological reality of the character, by throwing out dramatic conventions, throwing out, this idea that we have to have naturalistic speech, and using, heightened dialogue that's poetic, lighting that's used to create atmosphere. And so the main expressionists in the United States were Eugene O'Neill and Thornton Wilder, who were influenced by it. So what Miller was interested in is he was interested in expressionism. He was interested in this idea of depicting what was going on in Willie's mind, of enabling the audience to step into see what Willie is experiencing, instead of only having us either see his actions that all the other characters in the play are seeing, or have him self-report, saying, I feel depressed today, or I'm thinking about this woman I dated in the past, etc. So we wanted to be able to depict the psychological reality that Willie was experiencing. However, he also didn't want to abandon the conventions of realism, because he wanted, part of the why Death of a Salesman is so effective is we see that Willie is truly, his perception of the world is so different from what's really happening. And so we can't have that juxtaposition. We can't have that contrast against one another without having the realism there too. So we have the subjectivity of expressionism. We get to go inside of Willie's mind, but we also have the illusion of realism around him that allows us to understand the way in which Willie's perceptions are distorted. So yeah, if anyone ever asks you about Death of a Salesman, you can say it is a combination of both realism and expressionism, and it's what Miller wanted to use to try to most accurately convey the reality of Brooklyn and of New York City at the end of the 1940s, but also the psychological turmoil that Willie Loman was experiencing. Thank you.